Being concerned with misreads by peers, students of a field of languishing studies pertaining to the military's hand in sex, drugs, and rock and roll isn't inherently a vote of no confidence in their efforts. It can be if their purpose is malicious, but it almost is beneath the dignity of a fellow patriot in studies to review as a general rule the assumptions that seem false that are being made. And the reason I say that it seems unbecoming to make this take is that the presumption is that these are fellow scholars hard at work who may be in error in some ways. And that perception is jeopardized by what would not be unbecoming. Would not be unbecoming to confront malicious figures who are misconstruing what happened. Let me put that into a different context that's not in this field of research, being the MK Ultra. Just the general disposition of the University of Pittsburgh legal review forum was that you just win. It doesn't matter how. You have your version and you push that version. Now, I don't want this critique of peers to be polluted by my contempt for the legal philosophy that was being pushed at the University of Pittsburgh. If indeed the people I'm reviewing come from that school of thought, I mince no words. Steer clear of them. But what it seems to me has happened is more like the work of people who sincerely cared about Kennedy, but couldn't shake off the shackles of the formulas that were agreed upon for evaluating the case, the direction of the headshots, the number of bullet fragments, the politics of Lyndon Johnson, the shadowy figures in the background of the various photographs that were taken, the Mormon photo, the Bronson film. And they didn't look carefully at the status quo that was uploaded in his absence. Now, I saw a man on Weaponized News who I was cheering because he was certainly studying the right topic. He was studying Frankenheimer's 7 Days in May and the Manchurian Candidate, Frank Sinatra's relationship with JFK. And I think what he has wrong is that he doesn't understand that Frankenheimer may have just been play acting a left wing. He doesn't understand that Gregory Peck may have just been play acting left wing. You may have, because in acting you can never tell. The photographs he shows as evidence that Frank Sinatra was chummy with JFK looked to me like Sinatra was manipulating JFK. And because I have studied Reagan semiotics, I fear that weaponized news may be putting up a front for Reagan, and the usual cowardly innuendos about Reagan being friends with Lenin and Queerball being just a pussy, ignoring that a man who tortured me locked me in a house from the inside. And this was their idea of a legitimate legal confrontation. And the circumstances were also very peculiar. It was a Salk research labor team called ARC. And since we know now that the Pitt law is laboring incessantly to cover up for Yoko Ono's involvement with Will Zell on Mount Desert Island, the pornographic genocide, the fact that I was tortured and gassed in King's Estate, and it was the same people. The Society for Human Ecology were named in the MK Ultra experiments, if I'm not mistaken. And they twist the story sort of to make me look like I was a Manchurian candidate. In other words, the fact that I was suspicious of Reagan putting weapons of medium range in Germany, didn't like his war in South America, Central America, means that I was framing him for Gail Burstyn, who the warriors at the University of Pittsburgh ignored, claiming only that because of her I could have saved John Lennon, but she never daring to explain how because of her, much less investigate the truth in the idea that Reagan and Lennon were friends, because they were partners in this. Reagan's attorneys for Gail Burstyn and University of Pittsburgh had me in D.C. when Reagan claims he was shot. He came out and waved to me the night before and gave me a brochure that says there's no such thing as objective reality, only what the jury believes. And the evidence shows that Lennon pulled a Houdini just as much as Reagan faked the hit on himself, making it look real while shooting Hinckley in the head, which led to his wrongful death in the end. So we see a shenanigans of hocus pocus coming out of, after all, the lords of Hollywood media, the lords of Hollywood. So in their zeal to look at the mind control elements, they make themselves suspects in the game of numerology that comes through my computer at me. Gaslighting numerology is dismissed by most psychiatrists because they perpetrate it for forensic assertive gaslighting. So they could say that the person believes there's a cross burning on their lawn. The cross is burning in plain view. And they just say there ain't no cross burning on your lawn. It's like saying there's no genocide in Gaza. I'm not accusing weaponized news because I don't know. But when you start listing numerological factors, you may be confusing because of your premise, your point of departure. The semiotics of what really was being put in those movies with the illustrations they're making for the methods of mind control that lead to the neurohypnotic seizures of a Manchurian candidate. Now, I don't know of any real-life Manchurian candidates. I don't believe the Mark David Chapman theory that he was a Manchurian candidate. I don't believe it. What I believe is that they tried to play me for a sucker. They tried to give me a dare ultimatum on my honor to be the Aaron Bushnell of the AIDS attack. That's what they tried to do. I don't know if weaponized news was part of that or looking into it. And I know that Mackenzie Shirilla had a neurohypnotic seizure. She was a victim of a car bombing, and they prosecuted her as a murderer. And in the background of Carnegie Mellon's intelligence system are Grateful Dead heads in computer science, working with Biden, who believe fervently in the station of the mind by the MK Ultra. And they believe it's their word against someone else's word, and whose version is going to make people jump down, hold pee-pee, and get free Steelers tickets. Now, that may be a mischaracterization of weaponized news, but it's not a mischaracterization of the defense league surrounding John Schulman, Mercy Hospital, Peter Gabriel, Brian Milnes, John Milnes, Peter Shell, Sabby Sabs, the Carrot Tape, the Black Panthers, Cantu Repertoire Theater, and the various other people who did this very disturbing thing to battered, terrorized, neuroconic deaf child as part of the AIDS attack. Do they want to be known as that? Do they want to put up a smokescreen for that? I can't stop them from putting up a smokescreen for that. I'm only praising them for the direction of their work and pointing out some errors in their judgment and evaluation. And they've conjured, not them, but the society around us has conjured this military guillotine situation. People getting bumped off and playing checkers with real lives, right and left and backwards and forwards. It's tedious. A lot of decent people wanted to stop. I, I think I heard Weaponized News say that they think Charlie Kirk is a tragedy. I agree with that. I take my lead on the subject from the National Review. I knew that they would take a responsible approach to the problem given who he was. And I advise and recommend that people read the National Review's take, even if they disagree with him on the subject. I'm not into being put on out on the firing squad like Dostoevsky or being pigeonholed over a penny because of the prurient retardation of those ghastly Seattle people. You can't get enough of putting on the children's clothes like the IDF of the families they vaporized. What gall they had to ignore a warning in a publication at Carnegie Mellon University that said loud and clear that evidence had been found in 1994 that the Israelis were seeking revenge for Auschwitz by putting up a smokescreen about Lenin, Reagan, Sinatra, JFK, Lenin, Reagan, Sinatra, JFK, Lenin, Reagan, Sinatra, JFK, Lenin, Reagan, Sinatra. The Israelis are out for revenge for Auschwitz. Do you know what it would take for them to do that? A massive Holocaust. Reagan, Lenin, Sinatra, JFK.